So I've never had a stock truck get anywhere near climbing this corner. A lot of our modded trucks have trouble with this. 2 or 3 of mine can climb it pretty well. But usually, you see here, I mean, this don't have the body on it, but I'm gonna keep this a super lightweight rig. See here, when you're using all 4 wheels, that's what happens, okay? It loops out because those backs are spinning and pushing you and loops you out. Now, this is all a mess because I haven't finished everything up. Probably gonna mount the battery in the very front. That'll help it even more. So, plus we're gonna get rid of that front bumper. That'll help this approach right here. And we're gonna get a servo that works. So right there, it's gonna wanna start tipping. But if I lock the rear and drag it in to where it needs to be with the front, see there? I kind of got that where it's ready to catch and pull, hopefully. I'm amazed. This is a bone stock truck besides this dig setup. I mean, bone stock, no weights, nothing. Insane. So I'll just start off by saying this is a totally different rig. It's not a speed demon. You know, that's wide open. I mean, that's it, okay? The torque is pretty decent. Like, you know, you can see on my course, I'm not having much trouble crawling stuff. The low speed crawl is actually pretty good. I'm running just a little bit of overdrive, so you see that front is kind of dragging the rear a little. But the low speed crawl is better than the stock setup, in my opinion. Especially when you're in a bind. Now you can crawl smooth with the stock setup, you know, across the table here. But when you get in a bind, sometimes the stock setup wants to kind of just not pull, and then jump over whatever it's up against. That's not bad on the SCX24. It's bad on a lot of other stuff. The Enduro 24 is horrible about it. The Panda's pretty bad. The SCX24 is not bad out of the box on that, but it still does it sometimes. I did notice I've got a little binding back here. I had to cut my drive shaft in the back just a little bit. And I think it needs just a little bit more. There's like no play, no room for it to go anywhere there. So kind of wanted to show what's up with this thing. And it's a mess because I just soldered it all up and threw it in here, all right? So I left everything super long because I was just kind of test fitting all of this and making sure it worked. So it looks like garbage. So we have 2 little cheap ESCs here. Basically, they're your the power and the ground from them are ran together into this so that we can hook one battery up to power both ESCs. And then we have, this is a mess. So we have one ESC. I'm trying to sort this around just a little bit here. I don't think any of it's gonna make any sense. So one ESC is running to your throttle, just like normal. The other one here you'll see is running to my aux. One, I believe. Yeah. And then I cut the red wire here because you don't want both ESCs sending power to the receiver. You just need one sending power to it. So just cut the middle wire and leave it out. I have the motor mount came from Shapeways. It tells you on there what screws you need and that sort of thing. I didn't buy any screws. I have a ton around here, so I just made stuff work. You can see there's pretty big screws there. I could probably find some flathead screws there, or some, yeah, whatever you call them. That would sit a little better there on the skid. But like I said, I just used what I had around. You need a couple little tiny screws for your motors, these N20 motors. So you need 4 of those, 2 for each motor to screw the motors in. So one motor faces this way and took directly to the front drive shaft. And then this motor is facing this way, connected directly to the rear. And that's all there is to it. It's super simple there. You have to take out, your stock transmission and stuff. I don't even know what I did with it. It was laying here. And then you have to drill these holes in the skid just a little bit bigger to fit the screws that bolt this mount in. So then once you get that all together, the main thing is mixing this all on your transmitter. And that is kind of a nightmare. So obviously you got to be on connected to your receiver. You want to bind it, whatnot. And then you have to go to like mixing. So I went to throttle, motor on axle, and then you can kind of see the way I had to set this all up. So this is switch I, okay? So I set this up for switch I. You can see, you can change that. I did I liked the fact that this was 3 position. So we have all 3 positions. So then what you do is, you can see that's set on the second slot of the switch, right? That's on the first, or I guess that's the first, I don't know. So you can see that changing. So you have to have one of them, which I chose all the way up, is 50% front, 50% rear power. So that way this mode is just driving normal. So then to lock the rear, actually that's locking the front, I believe. Yeah, I think it's flip-flopped on here, but anyways, you have to have 100% on one, 0 on the other. And then same thing there, the opposite. So that way you're locking rear, or it shows on here locking, but my motors are flipped, I believe. Locking rear, locking front. The way it shows there, we're locking the front because it's getting 0. And there we're locking the rear because it's getting 0% pull, or throttle, I guess you would say. So that gives you your 3 setups, and you can see that changing. The problem is it's trying to get the motor synced up perfect. Sometimes you know, it wants to pull. You have to kind of go through your trim, change settings, because sometimes it'll want to pull with the front. Like when I first hooked mine up, even though I had 50% throttle front, 50% throttle rear, one of the motors was running the wrong direction. So I had to go into my aux channel. And this is the most I've ever messed with this 5R. Shoot, how do you want to do that? So you go to like your servo setup, I believe it was, yeah, and go down like to, instead of travel, see, you can go to that reverse, basically to reverse your channel. So say the motor that was running the wrong direction was the one that's plugged into the aux 1. So I'd go to aux 1, click that, and reverse it. That way it was spinning the right way. It's going to be different on everybody's transmitter. This is kind of how the spectrum works though. And you know, you can adjust your exponential and all that stuff. Like I said, it's kind of a pain to get them pulling together for a little bit. You kind of just got to play with your trims, you know, figure out if your motor that's pulling the rear is aux 1 and the motor that's pulling the front is your throttle. If your throttle is pulling and your rear is not, then you need to go adjust your trim to basically where, you know, your aux 1 is pulling with your throttle. I'm just going to confuse you a bunch, but I think everybody understands what I mean there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's super simple, like a super simple setup. Like I said, on Shapeways, this little mount is there for the 2 N20 motors. It fits great. I really like how it fits in there. It leaves more room than the stock setup did. One problem is when you go to fasten your drive shafts, normally your pins go all the way through. On the stock setup, the screw that goes in here is a pin that screws all the way through it, and it catches threads on the back side of the drive shaft. So there's no threads in this side here to put just like a grub screw to clamp down onto the motor. My front one, believe it or not, and that's another thing, you have to trim the inside of your drive shaft just a little bit. The drive shaft is like cut out perfect to fit on the motor. It's just not quite big enough. So you have to trim it just a little bit to make it fit. My front one is on there tight enough that I don't even have anything holding it. It's just, it works. It fit on the motor tight enough that it's doing fine. The rear, I guess maybe I trimmed the inside of that a little too much and it was wanting to spin on me. I tried to run a small screw in the back side of it to clamp down on it. The motor shaft doesn't stick out very far, so when you try to screw something onto it, it don't do very well. I dropped a little bit of tire glue down in there and it's holding fine. So I may have to figure something else out with that eventually if it doesn't hold up well. But right now, all the binds I've put it in, it's holding great. So it's unbelievable to me what this thing is doing as a stock truck with these stock tires that I absolutely usually hate. Look at that. That wheel nut's not even on, so that's nice. Yeah, normally these stock tires don't do anything. And part of it is, I think, the stock remote or ESC transmitter, your throttle is not that great. If you put it on low or medium, it does, it's a little smoother, but then sometimes it won't pull. But having the smoother low throttle on this, it gives these tires a chance to hook a little bit instead of just spinning and bouncing. So I'm still changing them out. I'm gonna see what these Thornbirds look like on the setup I'm wanting to go with. If they're not too small, we're definitely gonna run these because I really want to try this out with these. But we'll have to see. Overall, it's fun. It's a different style. Like I said, it's not a powerhouse. It's not gonna launch up a hill. It's totally different from my others, and that's kind of what I'm always looking for. You know, the exact same scale, basically the same truck, but it's a totally different experience. So it kind of keeps it new. So you know, I can grab any of mine, and the way I approach things is a little different. So it's definitely different with this, and you're more involved. I feel like, you know, locking out the rear or the front or whatever you need to kind of work yourself around. Instead of like my 4-wheel steer rig with the big scramblers, I can just maul over stuff most of the time. So, you know, sometimes it's challenging, but it's a whole lot easier and less involved. So I really like the style of this, and it's just something different. Probably not for everybody. Maybe you like more speed, and you know, I have trucks for that. I have a brushless revolver in my 4-wheel steer rig, so that's more kind of what it is. And this is kind of my slow crawl. So a lot of wires. Like I said, I could have cut these a whole lot shorter, but honestly, I was just like throwing it together kind of in a hurry just to see if I could get it to work, and I just stuck it together with what I had. I didn't even really cut the wires much or anything, and it's all lightweight, so there's not much there. I mean, you can pretty much just ball it up and strap it down. So pretty cool. I'm going to be getting started with changing this rig up quite a bit. I'm going a little different route than what I was going to do before. I was going to keep it simple. I'm not much at keeping it simple. I'm always doing something crazy. But let me know what you think. If you need any help with this, I'll try. The biggest part of it is on the transmitter, like I said. And once you know what you're doing with it, it's not so bad. I really couldn't find anything on this transmitter of how to do that, the mixing and stuff. And so I just kind of had to play with it. One thing you may have to do is, what did I do with the channel assign? I had to go to, I do that all the time. I had to go to the drive mode and set up on the fly for I. I don't remember exactly what I had to do here, and I'm not sure it's even necessary. I did it. And I added these modes. There was only like 1 or 2 here. So I added maybe the 2nd and the 3rd. And I think that helped give me the 3 choices on the mixing. So if you get to the mixing on your throttle, motor on axle, if you get here and it doesn't give you, you know, the option to have 3 different settings, you may have to do that drive mode. I honestly can't remember. I was going through so much stuff trying to get it to work, but now I feel like it would be fairly simple. It was just I had nothing to go by to try to set this 5R up like that. So I had to figure it out. Anyways, this video is really long, and I apologize, but hopefully this is some good info for anybody that's interested. And if you decide to do it, like I said, if you need some help, just holler at me. That was my main problem. There was nobody really to answer any questions I had, so I just kind of had to figure it out. So appreciate everybody watching. Peace.